Hi, Caroline Kearney here at Powell Arts, and I'm standing with the terrific Gwenn Seemel in front of two of her three pieces, which will be in our It Is Written show, which will run from now through October 29th with a special preview during the Collingswood Fine Arts and Crafts Festival on August 19th and 20th. Gwenn, would you like to introduce us to your pieces?
E is for Echidna and L is for Lobster. Are so pleased to meet you.
I am pleased to meet them as well, especially Echidna. No offense, Lobster.
So they're both from a book called Baby C's ABCs. It is an animal alphabet book that was created in collaboration with my audience. So the people who funded the book decided what animal I would paint, and then I painted them, and I made the book.
I love this. And we'll also have copies of these for sale during the show, which is perfect because it's during the book festival.
Nice.
So how did this project come together?
Okay, so I mean, there's lots of different threads, of course, that go into the making of any project, but the one that I want to pick today is speaking with a friend in Europe, a creative, and she was telling me about all of the money that's available for creative people in Europe to make projects.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, what would it be like to know that I have funding for any projects? And so I kind of dream journaled on my blog and was like, these are the things that I would do if I had the funding. And I listed a bunch of different projects that I was interested in, and I was like, I'd paint all the murals on all the walls, and then I also put in there, and I would love to do an animal alphabet book. And then one of my longtime supporters of my work sent me $250 and emailed me and was like, that's the one that I vote for. She was about to have her first grandchild, and so she was like, just go for it. And I was in this space with my work where some of my art had just been censored from a show at a public library, so I was feeling kind of delicate about my relationship with my audience. So I was like, this is it. I want to make a project with the people who I know love my work.
Yeah.
So that was,
That's so terrific. I love that this comes from we were just talking about how this is a project where we were like, if we owned a space, what would we want that to look like if we were the artist coming in? And so I love that this comes from a similar, I love that impetus because it's such a human compulsion, but I think one that we overlook, but there's so much good and hope and perseverance and kind of manifesting these things. I want to talk first about how you approach making the pieces, because on the one hand, these are realistic, not photorealistic, but they're representational, but they have these hyper colors. They exist. He's clearly standing on a ground, but it has all kinds of. You didn't draw the ground. You chose to surround them with names and things like that. So, can you tell me how you approach a piece like this? What do you think of the composition, the palette? Tell me all.
Okay, so 20 years ago when I was starting my career.
You do not look old enough to.
Thank you.
Sorry.
A critic said that my style was polka dot cubism. So that's what I've called it ever since.
I love that, and I see why he says that.
And so my style really starts from when I was 14 or 15, and my parents, lovely people, signed me up for an intaglio printmaking class where in that way of making, you have to crosshatch a lot in order to get a tonal area, or that's one of the ways that you do it. So you're making all these lines, overlapping lines to get grays and blacks. And I didn't even really know how to draw when I went into this class. And so then my drawing sort of became infiltrated by crosshatching. And then when I paint, I use lots of different sizes of brushes and also my fingers a lot. You can see sort of dots that are more like my fingerprints. And so the crosshatching doesn't look quite as tight or as even as you might see in an intaglio print, but it still has that same
energy. It's like an homage to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's so fascinating because it's both visceral and combining it with this very regimented, regulated thing, which also is the way language is.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. So I want to say the names in the background, because this is one of my favorite parts of this project. A lot of the names come also from the people who funded the book. They wanted to be able to name their grandchild their child, or some people use it as a way to do a memorial to a loved one who passed on. And then some of the names were just names that I filled in with. The idea is that there are 26 names on each of the 26 animal illustrations. And so that helps adults or older kids want to share the book with younger kids because there's something in it for them as well. There's a word search. And then also the kids, like the younger kids, can also learn about recognizing letters, and it encourages them to look into the brushstrokes to find what's a brushstroke and what's a letter.
And visual things and navigating and observation are how you teach a child how to do comprehensive thinking, and constructive criticism and all those things which are important to decision making.
Absolutely.
And also the way that they use language and art. Like art itself is a language.
And specifically I chose names because I liked the idea that it shows kids that you're a part of this huge human family.
Yes.
Of names that you might not recognize and might be hard to pronounce.
Well, yeah,
But-
and you're linking our human names with animals, which essentially
We are
animals.
Yeah.
So we do, sometimes I watch I have 2 bunnies, and I will watch my bunny go to a pile that he's collected of my stuff that I didn't even know I was missing, because apparently collection of beautiful things transcends what kind of animal you are.
Yeah.
He's just like, I made a den and I needed your earrings in it. I didn't know you dropped it 3 months ago and now it's there. But I love that. And I also love the way the names tie in with legacy and also telling the story of who you are. Because part of language and the way it exists, and something we're talking about a lot with this show, is that language is about the stories we tell, the structures we make. It tells us our legacy and our history, but it also, like you were saying, like dream journaling, it also prognosticates our future. And so this idea that they can see themselves on these pages puts a little seed of you matter, look, your name's in the book, and it gives them a little like, oh, it's like when you're little and you buy a bowl and it has your name in it and you're like, this is mine forever! And I love that. It's such a good and hopeful way to use language.
Thank you.
So, so you did 26 of these.
I did.
Was this your first, so do you typically work in animals, or you work in all kinds of different things? Do you do representational, like formally, or were you more abstract? I'm very curious because polka dot cubism really tells a story.
So I say I paint all kinds of animals, both the human and the non-human animals. That's really
great.
my
I love
focus.
this.
There's a little bit of landscape in there, a very little bit of purely abstract that I almost never share. I'm not comfortable without that crutch of figurative.
Yeah.
I love abstract work, and I think you can see that in my work, but I can't go that full way. I haven't figured it out yet. So.
Yeah, you're. I can tell that you're a relationship person. Like you want to know how context and relationship and things fit together, which is really cool. Your palettes are very distinctive. How do you come about your palettes? Were you looking to balance? You were probably looking to balance it throughout the 26. But how did you come up with what you were going to use? Did you use the same palette for all of them, or like I know that like this one, for instance, is primarily green and red, which is nice because primary, secondary. This one I would just call rainbow, even though probably pink stands out very.
Well, it's interesting that you say pink because that is the one pigment that I added, a new pigment that I added specifically for this series. I wanted it to run through the entire series. It was a fluorescent pink.
Yes.
I never used a fluorescent pigment before, but I'd always loved it. In fact, like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years before, I'd seen it in a painting at a gallery, and I was like, I need to figure out how to use this. I love the way this particular artist, whose name escapes me, had used it. And so I'd been sort of plotting and waiting for that moment, and this felt like the moment. So this pink is that fluorescent pigment,
Which
but
is
it's
perfect.
also, it's in here.
Yeah, and I love the way that you've tied like an almost fluorescent orange and purple and things like that. So you did use a base palette that was similar for all of them.
I have a general like base palette that almost never changes.
Yeah.
And then I'll often
Which for people who don't know is fairly typical for painters, but even for like printer design and collage, people tend to work
have
in
a
the same.
comfort,
Yeah, and then like for a new series, you might change it up. But yes, that answers my question. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It's great.
I've recently read a term called Umwelt, which was basically, yes, and the Umwelt theory that like we as humans tend to think that we're more evolved than other animals, but really what we're missing is in other ways, they are more evolved than us,
Right,
and it's
so
just a matter of
different
perspective.
perceiving, yes.
And so I love that that's kind of a story too, because perspective has everything to do with the written word. I think these are absolutely fascinating, and also they're just fun. They're fun. I like that they have meaning for whether you're old or young or somewhere in between. It's a very inclusive way to kind of go and present art that can, speak to everyone. And I believe, and you said it better than me earlier, so I'm gonna let you say it again, I believe that's part of your artist statement about how language is a unifier.
It is our longest running collaboration, and it is still working. These sounds that I'm making, the only reason why you understand it, is because we've all agreed that these sounds mean words and these words mean things to each other.
Yeah.
So when we're divided on everything else, to remember that we've made this agreement, that we're going to be able to make
It's
sounds,
a social
make
covenant.
shapes. Right. It's very healing to me to remember we have language and we share that.
And that's what this show is all about. So thank you so much for doing your artist talk. I'm sorry the phone's ringing right now. I hope everybody comes and sees this. It's perfect for the book festival. It's perfect for this. So thank you very much. It'll be here till October 29th.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gwen.